Hey, it's Aaron from GameEnthus.com, and in this video, I'll be reviewing Trekking Through History. In Trekking Through History, players are going to be involved on a way-back tour. You're going to be a time-traveling tourist on a time-traveling vacation, trying to go back in time over a series of 3 days to visit as many people and experience as many events as possible, and trying to have as many chronological events in one trek as possible, trying to score points as far as the places you go, the people you meet, in addition to completing certain objectives on your itineraries. Let me show you how it works. These are the components in Trekking Through History. You're going to have your clock, which you'll be putting the watches on, the stopwatches on, and moving throughout time. You have the board here, which has a section here for scoring. There's also a section here to tell you how to score treks. We'll get into that in a moment. And then you have a section for the cards that are divided up into day 1, day 2, and day 3. And there's also a sheet in the box that just tells you what all the dates are for all of day 1, day 2, and day 3. And the cards also feature various historical figures, events, so on and so forth. For example, this one is Drink Hot Chocolate with the Mayans. This one is Wrestle with Coutalun. And this one is Help Free Haiti with Toussaint Louverture from the French. The backs of all the cards have a little more information about what the art and everything else is referencing, which is very helpful. Should you not be familiar with something, you can get a rather short blurb, but something that can pique your interest and allow you to research it later, which I like. Or force the kids to research it later, which they always like. On the right side of the mat here, we have some of our experience tokens, wild experience tokens, which are purple, have a W on them. These can take the place of any of the other 4 experience tokens. And we have time crystals, which will go into every player's crystal tank. The tanks can hold, I guess, as many as you can get in them. There's no real limit to how much they can hold. And every player would also have a marker here for scoring. And then the second marker is actually for use with a module you can add to the game once you're a little more experienced with it, called the time warps. They're pretty cool. Aside from having really cool art in the back, they are actually placed onto the clock and add a little bit something extra for every day. The game takes place over 3 days or rounds. This one, for example, says, give another player one of your time crystals if you do gain any card. Actually, experience tokens here are at the bottom portion of all the mat. So this one is personal experience, event experience, innovation experience, progress experience, and then these, this one here stands for the time crystal. There isn't one for the wild because, you know, reasons. Every player is going to start off with 4 itinerary cards at the beginning of the game, and you're going to pick one. So you're not going to use one of them because the game takes place over 3 rounds. So one of them you will not be using. They're all numbered as well. They happen to just be in order. So they're 1 through, I don't know, 24. So there's a lot of them. And just to show you better, as you are gaining experience tokens, you begin to populate these columns and rows with the required experience. So obviously red, blue, goldish, green. And for this one, for example, should you have the required tokens here, you would gain 2 points. This symbol here, a little fan looking symbol, if you can make that out, stands for points that you would add in real time on the tracker. If you just fill this one in, you get 2 points. If you fill this one, you get 4 points. So you'll be picking your days sort of based on how you want to get points or what you think is best for you on that particular day. Another thing I should mention is that the second player marker is actually for the time warps. So if you're wondering why are there 2? Because the other one is for the time warp. So you won't really need these unless you're playing with the time warps. And I think last but not least, you have your ancestors, with whom, if they didn't exist, you wouldn't either. The ancestors are an alternative to the cards here that players can spend time on to gather, and they always come with 1 wild experience token. Those are the components in Trekking Through History. Okay, this is a 2-player setup. Both players' scoring markers are here. We have all the slots populated for day 1. Days 2 and day 3 are over to the side. We won't be using those right now. Each player has a time crystal in their crystal tank, and each player has an itinerary. When the game begins, each player would be dealt 4 itineraries, and they would choose one. The other 3 they just put to the side for the subsequent days. So they'll be choosing from the same pool of itineraries they received at the beginning of the game. The player who places their watch last, whoever's watch is visible, is the player who will go first. The whole core of the game is you are trying to build a trek. A trek is a timeline of events that are in chronological order. So you want to start off probably as far back as you can to give yourself more room to build those treks up. If you look at this scoring column here, if you have a trek that is 1 card, meaning just one of these cards and nothing else, at the end of the game, you lose 3 points. If you have 2, you get none. Once you get 3 cards in chronological order, a trek of 3 cards, you start gaining points. And as you can see, if you get down to 10, that's 30 points, which is difficult to do. If you have more than 10, you get an additional 3 points for every card past 10. Each player is going to have 1 time crystal in their crystal tank, and time crystals allow you to purchase cards for 1 less unit of time. So Hunt Bison. So this card here, if you were to purchase it, you're moving your actual watch that number of spaces. The time crystals allow you to do it 1 fewer. You can spend as many as you wish. Let's say I wanted to watch Emperor Song's Grand Fireworks in 11:10. Now it's going to cost me 5 units of time. Were I to spend this crystal, then it will cost me 4. Everything has to cost at least 1. You can't bring something down to 0. So you're always moving your watch at least 1 space. So for 5, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for me to do it. But if I spend the crystal, I want to move it 4. And your tank can hold as many crystals as you happen to gather. Underneath each card is an icon, and you will gain that experience token and then gain the tokens that are on the card once you have selected it and paid for it. So this one comes with a lot. It comes with an event, innovation, and a time crystal, and a personal experience token. So that's kind of a lot. It also costs 5 units of time to do it. So if you're in a scenario where you're working on a trek and all the cards that you can see happen to take place prior to the last card. So Tour Tesla's Lab is in 1891. All of these happen prior to that. You have 2 options. You can close this trek down and you score it later. It's only 2, so it's not worth anything. You could close it down, and then like you would normally do, you would just pay the amount of time, get a new card, start a new trek. You can't go back and continue treks. You can only work on 1 trek at a time. You have to close down a current one, start a new one. Or if you are confident and hopeful that the reveal card might be something that is prior, might be something that's after the trek you're working on chronologically, you could spend 3 time around the clock and purchase and do a Visit Your Ancestors, which allows you to sort of duplicate the last time you were in. So this would effectively duplicate 1891, meaning I'm still in 1891, but I've also not closed this trek down. I've left it open for subsequent turns to continue it going. And as I mentioned before, you're going to want to do that because you get more points for doing that. There's only 6 in the 2-player game. There's a limited number of them, essentially. You do earn a wild experience token for visiting your ancestors. So those are your options. You can pay for something if you can place it in the trek, start a new one with a new card you just purchased, or continue one on because you have to, or maybe you want to, by visiting your ancestor. And moving around the clock is interesting because as you move around, like I'm showing you that the times here indicate how many spaces you move. You can't go past 12. Let's say the last card I got was this 12,000 BCE card, and it cost me 2. I can go 1, 2. And there's a punctuality bonus of 3 points. So you can move your marker an additional 3 points once you've done that. Scoring your treks are what you do at the end of the game. So a turn is fairly simple. Everybody starts off here. Whoever is on top goes first. So if you place your watch here first, you're guaranteeing that you will not be going first. At least in that round. Well, yeah, at least in that round. So that is that. Also, whoever is furthest back goes first. So even if, let's say, player 2 just went, they're still behind player 1. Whoever's furthest behind always is the next player. So not until you've passed another player, not until player 2 is past player 1, will player 1 go again. All right, so I've talked about turns, and let me actually take one. So this happens to be the oldest event in the game in 37,000 BCE, just yesterday. And that's going to cost 3. I could spend my token, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to move 3. So 1, 2, 3. I would also get the progress token underneath the card I picked and the progress token that's on the card, which means I would put those on my itinerary, and I am 25% towards getting that 10%, but I have to get all the way down here before I can't displace the innovation one right here because I want those 10 points. I have to naturally gotten there from top to bottom. And everything will slide over, revealing more cards. It'll be player 2's turn. And player 2 is probably behooves them to get the oldest thing. Get it, behoove. Okay. Anyway, so they're going to move 2, 1, 2, and they're going to gain an innovation token, which will go right here, and they gain another innovation token. And covering up this innovation token gets them an additional time crystal to put into their time bank. Crystal bank, crystal tank. One of those things, crystal tank. And then all the cards would slide down. Player 2 is furthest back. They would get a chance to go yet again. Okay, so that was Trekking Through History. So my final thoughts. I'm sure it won't come as a surprise that I like this game. I thought it was a lot of fun. Let's talk about the components first of all. The components are excellent. The card quality, just the itinerary, everything has a very nice finish to it. Very well done. Having a player mat in just the base game that fits nice into the box. And I even appreciate how even the box itself was just where you can put the components in the box. Everything was just very well thought out, very well done. As far as the gameplay goes, the open drafting I feel like works very well. There's really no take that mechanic. I mean, there's some more things that you can do based on the expansion that I showed briefly, which I really do like the expansion. It adds some things to it. So if the base game is fine in of itself, but the expansion just adds a little bit more, and I'm completely fine with that. I think it works very well. And the cards are very varied, if you will. So the gameplay is fairly simple. It's not the most complex thing, but there is challenge and there is a strategy to making decisions on, do I continue this trek? Do I stop it right here and start another one? How close are we to the end of the game? These are all things you have to factor in. If you've already gotten to the point where your trek is a decent length, you really want to keep going, you can utilize the ancestor card so to keep it going, which I think works very well. I like the fact that you have the punctuality bonus. So if you honestly land on the 12 at the end of whatever day it is, you get another 3 points. I like the flow of the game. It's not that complicated, and that's okay. Every game does not need to be, a head scratcher. Every game does not need to be people taking 5 to 10 minute turns. And I think Trekking Through History just really hits a really nice sweet spot that's sort of between something that's very casual and light heading towards maybe looking at medium weight hobbyist game. I think it's something that lands not exactly in the center, but very close. It's something where I feel comfortable pulling this game out for people who are hobbyists like myself, and I feel comfortable playing this game with the wife and kids. It's something that it's easy to kind of wrap your head around. And the other real additional bonus is cards come up, people look at the pictures. I like the fact that the kids will ask me, well, who was that? And I say probably several times, read the back of the card, and should you want to know more, and you probably should, you can look it up later. I like that. I like that there's some things that are introduced to the kids that, historical figures, historical events that maybe they've heard about, maybe they haven't, maybe they know, maybe they want to learn more. I like that. Anytime I can have fun with the kids and teach them something and then they can learn something on top of that, that's always a bonus in my book. So all that said, I'll wrap it up by saying, if it's a surprise, Tracking Through History is highly recommended for me. Honestly, after my first game, the room got really quiet, and I could honestly tell you that I heard the table say, and that's going to do it for me. Anyway, thank you for watching. Take care, stay safe, and be blessed.